Antwerp. December. The kind of cold that didn't ask permission. It just crept in, settled under your skin, and stayed there. Bob was in his office, if you could call it that. One window, one lamp, a radiator that hissed more than it heated. He sat hunched over a sheet of music, scribbling notes no one would ever hear, a composition for ghosts. Once Bob had lived fast. Action, neon nights, women in silk and diamonds sharp enough to cut glass. But somewhere along the way, the soundtrack had faded, the thrill, the glamour, all gone. Even his soul hadn't stuck around to say goodbye. Now, all that remained was a half shadow, curled into a chair in a dark room. A man writing music instead of solving mysteries. Then came the ring, harsh, abrupt, real. The kind of sound that didn't ask what mood you were in. Maybe a client, maybe trouble. Bob needed both. Rent doesn't care if your heart's broken. He picked up the phone. Hello? Bob's detective agency. Whom am I speaking to? Nothing. Just breath. Heavy. Slow. Like the other side hadn't spoken in years and wasn't planning to start now. Bob squinted into the silence. He could feel the chill crawl back up his spine. Bob muttered under his breath, "Why does this always happen to me?" Suddenly, a cough. Subtle, fragile, like the breath of someone who wasn't sure they still had the right to speak. Then, a voice. Female. Soft, fractured like porcelain dropped once too often. "Listen, Bob. I know you, though you don't know me. Listen closely. Sometimes silence speaks the loudest." Click. Line dead. Silence again. Only this time, it screamed. Bob stared at the receiver like it had grown teeth. That line? It wasn't just a phrase. It was the title of the piece he was working on. The one he hadn't shown anyone. Not even himself. Bob squinted through the dusty window. The street outside blurred in mist and neon reflections. He lit a cigarette he didn't want and watched the smoke try to escape. Someone knew him, knew what he was writing, knew it better than he did. Bob needed answers, but not from books, not from files, from someone who'd once lived enough to understand the weight of silence. So he grabbed his coat, the old one with memories in the lining, and stepped out into the night. Rain, wind, no umbrella. Of course not. He knew where to go. A bar no one recommends. A barman nobody trusts. Except Bob. The man didn't have money, but he had something better. Truth. And he gave it straight. No garnish. No apology. Bob muttered to himself as he pulled his collar up. If anyone knows what silence hides, it's him. The bar was empty. No music. No buzz. Just the clink of a single glass from a man in the corner who'd stopped waiting for company years ago. Bob walked in like he'd done it before. He had, too many times. But this time, he needed something more than cheap whiskey and a warm seat. He took his usual place at the bar. Same stool, same lean. Behind the counter stood a man who'd traded ambition for honesty. The only currency he still dealt in. Bob spoke. Not much, just enough. The phone call, the silence, the name of his song. His friend didn't blink, didn't flinch, just wiped the counter and said, "Don't you see it, Bob? This isn't someone else calling out to you. This is your own soul, screaming from the silence you buried it in. You've been drifting, waiting for the past to give you permission to move. While others nurture their joy, you nurse wounds that no longer belong to you." The words hit like broken glass in a soft glove. Not cruel, just true. The man leaned in. "I know a place. People go there when they're ready to start again, to help others, and maybe in doing so, help themselves. Go there, Bob. Let knowledge soothe what you forgot how to feel." Bob said nothing, just nodded, dropped a crumpled note on the bar, and took the first bus out of the city. The city rolled past in streaks of gray, morning light, wet streets, a bus that rattled like old bones. Bob sat still, eyes on nothing. His friend was right. He'd been hollow for years, not living, just lingering. He wasn't who he used to be. And maybe that was the point, not to go back, but to become something more. The thought hit hard, not a whisper, but a punch. Who could help him? What came next? Questions long buried now crashed back like thunder. And this time, he didn't look away. The place wasn't what he expected. A school, yes, but not for grades or diplomas. This was a place where people learned to be care for others. Bob wandered the halls, asked questions, tried not to sound as lost as he felt. How do I wake my soul again? He asked a group of students. How can I understand why silence speaks the loudest? But the rector didn't care for ghosts. He saw Bob for what he had been, not what he might become. A man without drive, without focus, a man who no longer recognized his own reflection. Bob felt the door close before it ever opened. He turned to leave. Then a voice, small, soft, certain. "Don't listen to him," she said. She wore soft pink, young, calm, but her words landed with the weight of truth. None of us are perfect. We're all learning every day. Find the girl without a voice, the one whose words echo in silence. You'll find her at the art festival, a place for those who don't fit the mold. My friend will help you trace the path, your path, toward meaning. Bob sat down at the table. The strangers surrounded him, not yet friends, but not foreign either. He knew this was where the journey had to begin. Moments later, he was on his bike, wind in his face. He pedaled hard, chasing something he couldn't name, but could finally feel. Who would he meet there? Who was this girl without a voice? Too many questions, but for once, that was fine. His blood was moving, and for the first time in years, so was he. The festival was alive. Laughter in the air, drums beating like heartbeats, paint, fabric, movement. Everywhere he looked, color danced. He expected silence. Instead, he found joy, unapologetic, unfiltered, and it disarmed him more than any gun ever had. Bob wandered through the space. Halls filled with color, motion, and strange, beautiful silence. Every creature he passed was different, bent, scarred, imperfect, and yet every single one of them was alive in a way he hadn't felt in years. They weren't fixing themselves, they were expressing, and in doing so, they were whole. He felt it, not in his head but somewhere deeper, a quiet warmth crawling through the hollowness he thought was permanent. And then he saw her. He didn't know how. He just did. The girl without a voice. Bob approached, spoke, told her his story. She said nothing, but she listened. She took his hand, gentle, steady, and led him to a table. They drew. Nothing fancy, just lines, shapes. But with each stroke, something unspoken passed between them. At the end of the day, she handed him a drawing. On it, written in soft, careful letters, "Let time reveal what your soul longs for." He smiled, grateful, but just as he folded the page, he saw something else. One word, scribbled in the corner. Marrakesh. Bob froze. It matched the mark on the map his friends gave him. Back in that dusty little room with too much coffee and too little sleep. He didn't hesitate. He bought a plane ticket. And before night could catch him, Bob was already in the air, chasing the next piece of the puzzle. Marrakesh, a city of heat, chaos, and narrow alleys that never end. Bob was looking for something you can't see. Time. How do you find time? How do you catch it? If it runs. Then he saw it. A small creature, flickering like a mirage, slipping through the crowd. He gave chase through dust and voices until it stopped, turned. "I can't run from you, Bob," but neither can you run from me. It handed him a pocket watch, then disappeared into the sea of people. Bob opened it, engraved inside, "Time dreams, the time of dreams. Lima," he exhaled. "No time to waste." He smirked. By nightfall, he was on a ship, southbound, toward Lima, toward whatever came next. Peru, hot, wet, and full of mosquitoes. Bob's least favorite kind of place. And he still had a journey ahead of him. First, a creaking boat, held together by rust and good luck, drifting for days along a brown, stinking river. The river stank. The air stuck to his lungs like guilt. Sleep came in gasps. Food didn't come at all. Then came the jungle, louder, closer. It didn't welcome you, it swallowed you. But Bob pushed on, sweating, swearing, slashing through green that didn't want to be cut, driven by something he didn't yet understand, until a voice. "Hooray! You made it, Bob! Come, the curandero is waiting!" A strange, living blur, all color and teeth and joy. The shaman was already waiting, eyes ancient, still heavy with knowing. "Your time is over," he said. "Not my words. Time's." Bob hesitated, then stepped inside the hut. The hut swallowed him. Dark, humid, alive with fear. A cup, thick, bitter, brown as the earth and just as ancient. Let the one without time lead you to the place where time was born. He drank, then fell, through memories, through silence, through everything and nothing. When he came back, he wasn't the same man. His wounds no longer bled. His soul no longer hid. "I know what I must do," he whispered to his spirit guides. "Follow my heart, warm my soul, heal, to help." The creatures cheered, soft glowing beings, each a piece of him. Mirror, mirror on the wall, you're more than just your weakest call. Bob looked at them, one by one. Two, Kai, Yo. Wait a minute. Tokyo. Bob grinned. Well, damn. Japan it is. Tokyo, a city like no other. Lights, noise, rhythm, a pulse that never stops. Bob had never seen anything like it, but he wasn't here to look. He was here to understand. The invitation from the Psychiatric Institute came unexpected, but welcomed. Finally, a chance to learn something real about the mind, about people. What he didn't expect was to end up on the other side of the desk. No lecture hall, no textbook, just him on a couch, faced with questions that cut deeper than he was ready for. Tell me about your time. How do you listen? What do you avoid? Why do you run? He talked about empathy, about control, about why he always had to fix things, and why silence scared him more than failure. These weren't psychologists. They were mirrors, and they held nothing back. Then one day, he looked in the real mirror and didn't see the man who ran. He saw something else. A mind hungry for knowledge, a heart moved by others, hands made to create and to help. He smiled, not out of pride, but recognition. This is the man I've been trying to find. His therapist, a quiet genius named Dr. Aikido, nodded gently. Then it's time for your next step. Bob raised an eyebrow. Where to? Boston didn't hesitate. If you want to help people, with ideas, with tools, go where innovation meets empathy. You're sending me to a lab? Bob asked. Boston smiled. Something better. You're going to Boston. Boston, no longer a city. A skyline of floating chrome, neon veins and clouds that never touch the ground. Bob didn't fly here. He rocketed in, straight through the stratosphere. into the most advanced civilization ever imagined. Flying cars hummed overhead, buildings twisted like satellites mid-launch. Everything gleamed, everything moved. On advice from Dr. Aikido, Bob came here to feed a different kind of hunger. The hunger for knowledge, the Institute for Technology, the Institute of the Future. What an honor to be invited. And yet, here he was. He met scientists who spoke through glass and across continents, voices traveling through wires, images dancing between circuits, but nothing struck him more than the great thinking machines, gleaming towers of thought, humming softly like digital monks. His old friend, Mr. Bitbite, led the way. "These machines, Bob," he said, "will one day solve problems our minds can't even grasp, and you can help guide them." Bob stood wide-eyed, like a boy in a candy store made of copper, code, and dreams. But then came another voice, deeper, calmer, human, Dr. Bite. "Technology means nothing without humanity," he said, "without beauty, without expression. That, Bob, is your gift." He handed Bob a ticket, not to space, but to Vienna. "Go. There, you'll learn the highest form of human expression, music." And Bob smiled. Ah, music. His first love. But surely not his last. Vienna, where even the wind seems to hum in perfect harmony. The city of Mozart, Mahler, Schubert, a museum disguised as a metropolis. Bob arrived with a heart still volume echoes. But here, among the domes and sonatas, something began to settle. Standing in front of the gate of the Vienna Conservatory, where music begins where words end, he knew something magical will happen. He was welcomed by the legendary professor, Sila Soldomi, part pianist, part prophet, full artist. Soldomi spoke like he played, with flair, precision, and just enough madness to make you listen. He led Bob through the conservatory. From every room, music, pure, alive, preludes, etudes, fugues that made your chest ache. Bob felt small. He whispered, "I'm no more than an amateur." Soldomi smiled. "We all are, Bob. Doubt is where music begins. Technique is practice, but emotion, that's the soul at work." And so began the grind. Days into nights, weeks into months. Sweat, repetition, keys worn, doubts peeled back. Until one day, "Bob," said Soldomi, "you're ready, not just to play, but to listen, to yourself. Go home, use what you've gathered, give something back. Take this, faster than a finale." Bob hesitated, then smiled. He stepped into the light, and just like that, deconstructed note by note, Bob disappeared into the ether, headed home, to finish his piece, to begin the rest. When Bob came home, he knew. He called them all together, friends, family, even the ones who thought he'd never make it back. And he spoke, calm, clear, like a man who had finally listened and heard. "I've traveled the world," he said, "met strange creatures, wise fools, and people who held up mirrors when I couldn't look at myself. They helped me see who I was, and more important, who I could become. So I'm going back to school, to study occupational therapy, to use my creativity in therapy, my self-knowledge to understand others, and my passion for technology to help them thrive. But above all, I want to be of service, because that's what makes us human." And so Bob became a student again. Not always easy, but always worth it. Years passed, and now, Bob is an occupational therapist. He helps those struggling with their minds find peace within them. He introduces new technologies to children whose world was once too small. And the music, it never left. It hums in the background of his days and plays loud when it matters. His friends still gather around the piano, and sometimes He dreams of a concert, just one, for someone who needs it most, like the girl without words, because when even one heart is lifted, the world becomes just a little more whole. And Bob, he's found his place. Sometimes solitary, never alone.